Rooms! Mrs. Parker's voice, sharp as a sparrow's, cut through the dim hallway. She was a wiry woman, all angles and suspicion. Follow me. The young man, fresh off the train, trailed behind. He clutched his worn suitcase, each step echoing his uncertainty. Mrs. Parker flung open a door. Double parlors, she announced, gesturing at a cavernous space. Faded grandeur clung to the high ceilings and chipped moldings. The musty air spoke of long-forgotten parties. Bit much for me, he mumbled, dwarfed by the space. Mrs. Parker sniffed, her gaze already scanning him for the telltale signs of a non-payer. Got something smaller? He ventured. Mrs. Parker, with a sigh that suggested the world was full of unreasonable young men, led him on. Days blurred into weeks. The city, once a shimmering promise, now felt like a clenched fist. Each rooming house held the same disappointment: exorbitant rents, cramped spaces, and landlords with eyes like gimlets. He'd climbed countless stairs, each creak a reminder of his dwindling funds. He'd endured the disdain of landladies who saw only his threadbare coat and worried frown. He'd seen rooms barely large enough to hold a bed, let alone his dreams. Each refusal chipped away at his hope, leaving him wondering if the city was simply too big, too indifferent to care for one young man's aspirations. There was the artist's garret, all paint-splattered floorboards and canvases leaning precariously against the walls. The air hung heavy with the scent of turpentine and unfulfilled aspirations. Then came the musician's haven, a symphony of unwashed dishes and overflowing ashtrays. A battered piano sat in the corner, its keys yellowed with age and cigarette smoke. He even encountered a retired sailor's quarters, complete with a stuffed parrot perched atop a bookcase overflowing with nautical charts and adventure novels. The scent of salt and sea lingered, a bittersweet reminder of distant shores. He was about to abandon hope when he stumbled upon Mrs. Parker's boarding house again. "Anything left?" he asked, his voice hoarse with exhaustion. Mrs. Parker, her expression unchanging, pointed to a narrow staircase. "Top floor," she rasped. "Skylight Room. Cheap." The stairs creaked a mournful protest as he climbed. He pushed open the door at the top, and a shaft of sunlight pierced the gloom. The room was small, tucked under the eaves, but the skylight, a single magical pane, bathed the space in a warm glow. It felt like a beacon, a promise of brighter days. Section 5. Life Under the Eaves. The Skylight Room became his sanctuary. He lived frugally, his days filled with the clatter of his typewriter and the rustle of pages. At night, the city lights twinkled beyond his window, a constant reminder of his dreams. He shared the floor with a motley crew. There was Miss Eloise, a retired opera singer, prone to dramatic pronouncements and even more dramatic hats. Then there was Mr. Henderson, a retired accountant who spent his days meticulously tending to his collection of cacti. And of course, there was Mrs. Parker, her sharp eyes missing nothing, her presence felt even in her absence. Section 6. A Chance Encounter. One rainy afternoon, he found himself seeking refuge in a nearby coffee shop. He was hunched over his writing when a voice startled him. "Mind if I share this table?" A young woman, her eyes bright with intelligence, smiled at him. He found himself nodding, captivated by her warmth. They talked for hours, their conversation flowing effortlessly from literature to art to their shared dreams for the future. He learned her name was Anna, and she was an aspiring journalist, new to the city just like him. Section 7. The Kindness of Strangers. As weeks turned into months, his friendship with Anna blossomed. She became his confidant, his most ardent supporter. She cheered his successes and offered comfort during moments of doubt. One evening, over a shared pot of tea in his Skylight Room, he confessed his financial struggles. He spoke of his dwindling savings and the fear that he might have to abandon his dreams and return home. Anna listened patiently, her expression full of empathy. When he finished, she placed her hand over his. "Don't give up," she said, her voice filled with conviction. "I have a plan." The next morning, Anna arrived at his door, her face flushed with excitement. "I showed your writing to my uncle," she announced, brandishing a letter. "He's an editor at a magazine." He stared at the letter, his heart pounding. It was an invitation, a request for him to submit a story for consideration. Hope, so long dormant, flickered back to life. He poured all his heart, all his longing, into that story. He wrote about the city, about the struggles and triumphs of ordinary people striving for their dreams. He wrote about the kindness he'd found in unexpected places. Weeks later, the response arrived. It wasn't just acceptance, it was a resounding yes, filled with praise for his writing and an offer for a regular column. His world shifted on its axis. The publication of his story opened doors he never thought possible. His career blossomed, his words resonating with readers who saw themselves in his stories. He moved out of the Skylight Room, but he never forgot the lessons he learned there. He carried the memory of its warmth, its promise, with him always. He achieved his dreams, but he never forgot the people who had helped him along the way. He made sure to extend a helping hand to aspiring writers, offering encouragement and guidance. He often thought of the Skylight Room, its smallness insignificant compared to the dreams it had nurtured. It had been a crucible, a place where hope had been tested and found its strength. He knew that somewhere in the city, another dreamer would find their way to that room, and he hoped they too would find inspiration under its eaves, bathed in the warm glow of its magical skylight. The city, once a symbol of struggle, now represented possibility. It was a reminder that even in the most unexpected places, amidst the cacophony and chaos, dreams could take root and flourish. And as he looked up at the city lights, he couldn't help but smile, knowing that somewhere, high above the bustling streets, a single skylight shone like a beacon of hope, waiting to guide the next dreamer on their journey.
On the first landing, she met him coming back bearing the astronomer in his arms. He stopped and let loose the practiced scalpel of his tongue, not loudly. Gradually, Mrs. Parker crumpled as a stiff garment that slips down from a nail. Ever afterward, there remained crumples in her mind and body. Sometimes her curious roomers would ask her what the doctor said to her. "Let that be," she would answer. "If I can get forgiveness for having heard it, I will be satisfied." The ambulance physician strode with his burden through the pack of hounds that follow the curiosity chase, and even they fell back along the sidewalk abashed, for his face was that of one who bears his own dead. They noticed that he did not lay down upon the bed prepared for it in the ambulance, the form that he carried, and all that he said was, "Drive like hell, Wilson," to the driver. In the next morning's paper I saw a little news item, and the last sentence of it may help you, as it helped me, to weld the incidents together. It recounted the reception into Bellevue Hospital of a young woman who had been removed from number 49 East Dorset Street, suffering from debility induced by starvation. It concluded with these words: "Dr. William Jackson, the ambulance physician who attended the case, says the patient will recover." Make the background music storytelling.